This is the Wednesday Caveat Podcast with Matteo, Murph, and Pesce. Hello.
There's more to heaven and earth than that are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Horatio.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me from the corner? Testing 1, 2.
Gallery.
From the top.
Cool.
Hello.
Let's jump right into the BuzzFeed thing.
Please.
So, we developed this bit, or topic, or whatever you want to call it, based on all of our hatred. I think it's mutual. For BuzzFeed and everyone that posts on Facebook. And I know there's probably a lot of people listening that probably do this, and I don't care. But everyone's trying to outpost each other about, like, a more astute or abstract concept or topic, like why you should never eat chocolate again. Or, like, stupid concepts that are infuriating and no one really cares about.
Yeah.
And are completely untrue, probably. But it's just like, whoa, I never thought of that. So we've thought of an idea of we're all going to read off, or at least Matteo and I are going to. And I guess Chris will be the most objective.
Okay, I can say
so
middle.
You can guess which is true and which isn't. So we've all thought of, we'll read off 2 possible BuzzFeed article subjects. One will be real, one won't be. So true and false, pretty much. And just to highlight how stupid and obscure BuzzFeed is and how it should not be a part of our culture anymore.
And try and guess which one you think is the actual BuzzFeed article that was on BuzzFeed.com and millions of people read.
And thought which was one really eye-opening.
And which one is a fictitious farce that we thought of.
Yeah, but you would still believed if we wrote about it.
Mm-hmm. Something that someone would absolutely take as gospel for absolutely no good reason.
Yeah, I'll start, I guess. Okay. All right, so one's true, one's not real. But might be real next week. All right. 11 things people with unnaturally colored hair are sick of hearing. Or 11 ways to wow your boss before that bonus you want.
11 ways to wow your boss seems a little too practical for BuzzFeed. So I'm going to say that that's the false one.
I think that's the real one.
Okay, so you say false, you think the hair one is correct. Oh, no, wait, opposite. Sorry.
Yeah,
opposite.
Yeah. The 11 things people with unnaturally colored hair are sick of hearing is true. And the other one is false.
Now that's really surprising because that sounds exactly like something stupid that they think all the go-getters on BuzzFeed are going to read.
That's why I made that up. Yeah. I thought it was like exactly what like Silicon Valley people are like, hey, what can I do?
Yeah. No,
Aaron Hardwig would definitely like read that article. I don't know if you're listening, Aaron, but you totally would. I know you would.
All right, so here's my next group. Why you should never use Apple products. And then in all caps, we aren't kidding. And then the other one is 21 truths Jim and Pam taught you about love. Jim and Pam from The Office.
That's really good. That's a really good one.
They were my favorite on-screen couple for a solid couple of years.
The Jim and Pam one is real, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to go with real on that one too.
You guys are both right.
Nice.
But the Apple one could totally be one.
The Apple one could be one. Absolutely.
All right, here's another one.
Especially after the new 6 that just came out.
11 people who look like IKEA products. Or 19 animals that are voting yes in the Scottish independence referendum.
The first one is real.
First one real?
Did you both say the first one?
Yeah.
They're both real. Okay, here's my last one. 21 impossibly adorable wedding day dogs. Or 13 songs your dad hated but your mom couldn't stop playing.
Ooh.
Both real.
Or both real?
Actually, no, both fake. I'm gonna say.
Both fake?
Both fake.
I'm going to say the second one's fake. The mom song.
The second one's fake. The first one is real, though. Okay, so those are mine.
That's like, those are the good bit.
Do you want to have me read mine later so we're not, like, beating this horse to death and we can...
The audience wants more.
Do you want more? All right, so...
I mean, might as well do it right now.
The buzz.
Yeah, you got to feed them. They got the buzz. So I did specifically lists that Buzz... I guess you were doing some lists, but...
Yeah, I think most of mine were lists.
I did specifically lists, so I'll say 2, and then you guys try and guess. Well, I guess, Brendan...
I actually don't remember any of them, so
okay.
I'll be pretty objective.
So I'll say 2, and you guys try and guess. 20 doodles that show what we're really, really, in all caps, thinking during business meetings, or 19 gifts that will show you ice cream is your best friend.
Huh. I'll go with the first one. It's true.
I'll second that. First one's true.
That's correct. 20 reasons why going to the gym is a huge waste of time, or 10 reasons to date your best friend.
Oof.
I'll go with both true.
I made up the second one, but I'm sure that's
You didn't give him a
actually
chance.
an article out there somewhere.
Oh, good. I was gonna go with that too. That's
Right.
dude. You guys are fucking on point. You guys can write for BuzzFeed. Jesus
Well,
Christ.
If anyone out there is listening, we are available to write.
Yeah, we hate your concept, but
Yeah.
we glad
We
to
think
destroy it.
we think it's funny in like a your stupid way.
Yeah,
So,
it's poison.
yeah.
All the food. is
9
bad.
9 of Taylor Swift's boyfriends and the songs she wrote about them, or the most ridiculous world leaders of all time.
Oh fuck. I don't think like BuzzFeed can comprehend the most fucked up leaders of all time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know Taylor Swift, even though she's a darling, has really gone
She's
through.
adorable.
She's really.
She's known to shake it off.
Yeah,
so.
she's.
She
walked
knew
a
you
few
were
blocks.
trouble when you walked in.
I'll
go with the Taylor Swift one. It's probably real because I agree with you. I think that like history is above their pay grade.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
all pop culture based. I think.
You guys are dead wrong.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, can't you totally see the world leaders one is just like
George Bush is number one.
a
or
picture
something.
of
Yeah.
Mussolini, and then did you know that Mussolini actually did this?
Yeah, and the girl's like, I thought that was a kind of pasta or something.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did a chip. I just stole a Jim Norton bit, but
Yeah.
Everyone has a little chip in them.
yeah. Shout out to Chip, I guess.
Jim, if you're listening, we'd love to come on the show sometime, and I love your Twitter account. It's on point.
It is. All right. Well, that was a good segment.
Yeah, good work.
As far as what I was thinking, another subject I want to talk about is the shitty how somehow the NFL and the media allowed the Ray Rice thing to ruin the beginning of the NFL season, and it really pisses me off because I really like the NFL. I love watching football, and the fact that all anyone talks about is Ray Rice. And granted, it was a big deal. He should have been kicked off the team. I agree with everything that happened to him. But the fact that that's all anyone wants to talk about, it's like that sports has become like tabloid culture. Like it's like keeping up with the Kardashians, but with sports. Like everyone's like wants to talk about Roger Goodell, and now Adrian Peterson is only adding to the fire because he's getting arrested for child abuse, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, I guess he like spanked his son and like he got cut up. Or
He
whatever.
used a switch to like beat him.
Oh shit.
A
Was it bigger
switch
than his
is a
thumb?
tree branch with all the leaves removed.
But the thing that pisses me off is there's all these pundits that want to politicize sports. And, like,
Keith Olbermann.
Keith Olbermann did a monologue. He said, you should boycott all Ravens games. He said the whole football season is a loss. It doesn't matter anymore because of this. That's so unfair, first of all, to all the players that still care and didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like Ben Roethlisberger. And, come on. And, it's just, like, annoying. It's, like, these guys that, like, first of all, Keith Olbermann, wants to be a political pundit. It's obvious because he had a political show.
Oh yeah.
And everyone hated him, so he went back to sports. So that's why he's making sports such a political topic. Like, he's treating this situation as if, like, a politician did something. And it's, like, really annoying. It's like, I don't care about the inner workings of the NFL at all. Like, I think they did okay with the situation. Like, maybe they didn't give him the right suspension to begin with. So maybe fire Goodell, but just don't talk about it continuously. And, like, the thing is, like, I've never gone to a sports bar and sat next to a guy watching a game with me and been like, hey, dude, you like this game? And they're just like, no. I'm just like, you're not a fan of the teams? He's like, no. Why are you watching it? Oh, I just love the inner, like, workings of the NFL's corporation, and like, that's why I watch. It's like, no one cares about that. You're alienating the fans of football. Like, people care about the game. Ray Rice is out. He's gone. It's over with. Can we just fucking move on? Yeah. It's like, I'm sick of it. I don't know.
Keith Olbermann is really the worst, too. Like, he's just, like, beating a dead horse at this point. Like Goodell's obviously on his way out, but like it's the same thing we were talking about last week with the apology culture and like everyone has to get fired whoever makes a mistake. Granted, like Goodell probably should get fired at this point, but it seems so trite to me for like all these news analysts to like constantly be calling out people like he should be fired, but then the first time they ever make a mistake, like they're not.
I'm interested. Like I haven't seen it. I haven't watched the show, but what is Stephen A. Smith saying? Because he made that comment about the video before the second half came out, and he got suspended. Remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Is he like getting pretty quiet on this situation? Or
ESPN took him off First Take for a week. He's been back on, and I think they've actually kind of avoided talking about it on the show because they know like what his opinions are on the subject, and he's also not given to changing his mind about it, which I do respect about him.
He also his opinions were not that out of bounds. He just said,
even though he's a blowhard, like I appreciate that he won't change his mind.
Let me tell you this, Skip Bayless. Quite frankly, like
we should have an entire episode just on you, like where you just impersonate Stephen A. Smith the entire time.
Yeah, even though I'm not that good at it, but no one can impersonate Skip Bayless. He's like impossible to impersonate. You know how they had Frank Caliendo go on ESPN?
Caliendo could do it.
No, he couldn't.
Really?
He couldn't do it. He kept trying to do it, and Skip Bayless like, that's not me. I gain respect.
I feel like he'd be kind of easy to impersonate. He has just.
You said that looks like a transvestite, 80 octogenarian.
Just such like grandiose way of talking, and really be careful with your words when you're saying it, and say like that you really
just talk about how
hate something that everyone else likes.
Just talk about how LeBron James is the worst basketball player ever, and how Tim Tebow is the best football player ever.
Actually,
that's
actually it.
Yeah.
That's actually it.
He's so wrong on both, and he's never admitted it.
Yeah.
Well, these people all seem to have forgotten what Jackson High School were like. How are you surprised that people like this are assholes when they're adults?
They
too?
hit people for a living.
Yeah, that's what they're fucking. It's like a mentality thing, but at the same time, they're all fucking assholes. Generally speaking, like all these football players in high school and even when we were younger in middle school, they were all assholes.
Except for the Ravens O-lineman from The Blind Side.
Yeah, Michael Orr's a
good guy.
Well, there's a big heart thrown in between big egos every now and again, but come on now.
True.
But it's almost comical to the point that people are, defending or not defending, and then on top of that, there's more people that are just surprised that it's going on. And that it's being accepted and that's going on, but like that, there was always the upper echelon of nerd that realized that if they attach themselves to a well-running horse, aka a football player, they're gonna get somewhere. So NFL higher ups, they're those fucking nerds all grown up, still seeing these guys as dollar signs. And when they were kids, it was perspective dollar signs. When it's adult, it's literal dollars. So they're going to defend them no matter what. And if they can't, they can't. But then they throw out this false sense of I can't believe this false surprise. And we fucking in America, you grow up with these assholes, and that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Where I grew up, it was hockey players more so than football players. But
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, there's obviously good ones, too, but it's like you can't be surprised by, like, certain actions. Like, I know if we, like, actually worked for, like, a radio station, we'd be fired for even saying that. Like, I couldn't be surprised by, like, are you kidding me? He hit her in the face.
Like, how are you surprised?
Yeah, the Wednesday caveat is independent.
Yeah, we don't fuck around. Freedom of speech. Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just, like, I just wish this wasn't even I mean, it had to be a semi-discussion because, like, he should have been, kicked off the team and whatnot. But, like, first of all, I do think he'll be back in a year or two.
I think he's done.
I think he'll be back.
Vic
I know
is
he had a
back.
horrible... Yeah, what Vic did was worse, first of all. No one's talked about that. Well, Michael Vick fucking drowned puppies. That's worse than hitting a person, I think.
Yeah, I honestly think so, and I find that dogs have been domesticated for about 15,000 years. And
to trust human beings.
Yeah, the way they were domesticated is the wolves and the jackals and the hyenas that were being bred together, the ones that were defiant were fucking killed off. So we have this loyal canine.
That's natural selection for you.
That's what it is. Like, but human beings were that nature. We were Mother Earth to them. we're their God. We created them.
I know it. That's why it's such a.
That's why they have this loyalty thing. So if you're a human being and you do atrocious things to a dog, you're beyond inhuman because you're.
Was Michael Vick the one who was actually drowning them? I thought it was like his.
Well, Fidel would say ignorance is no excuse.
Yeah,
so
I gotta agree with that one. Yeah,
he was definitely saw it. Like, I mean, I wasn't at the courthouse, but the fact that they sent him to jail, his hands had to have been pretty fucking dirty.
Did you guys think that Vic should have been able to come back?
Yes, I think anyone can be redeemed. I hate how our culture is like one bad thing, you're gone. Like, what if Ray Rice fucking turns a new leaf, does domestic violence? Like, they've talked about this, and not to like always cite Opie and Anthony, but they've talked about this. Like, what if Ray Rice does domestic violence PSAs, like, does a lot of volunteer work for a year,
and he's sincere about it.
Yeah. Why shouldn't he be allowed to have another second chance? Like, why can't people have second chances in our culture? But, like, I was talking to someone about this. I'm so glad the whole Ben Roethlisberger thing happened 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
The dick pic, right?
No, he supposedly might have raped someone.
Oh, shit. Okay.
But he wasn't even convicted. It was just, he wasn't convicted. It probably wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
But
wasn't that quite a bit more than 3 years? Wasn't that like...
It was about 2 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago.
I had that kind of
money.
Well,
the suspension he got was 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
But either way, I'm afraid that if that happened this year, he would have been, like, not allowed to come back. Because our culture is becoming more and more... And he wasn't even convicted. He was not... It was dismissed, his case. Even the mother of the girl said, like, it wasn't true.
Mm.
So, but, I mean, Ray Rice is obviously more overt. Like, there's a fucking video.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that pissed me off. Like, when the first half of the video came out, we all knew what happened. He hit her, obviously. Why else did she pass out on the ground like that? Like,
oh, yeah. Well,
it just, like, shows how childish, I think I tweeted about, like, how childish our mindset is that, like, we have to see the actual punch to get mad. Like, just us knowing it happened wasn't enough. We had to see it.
Yeah.
And it just shows, like, American culture. Like,
it reflects really poorly upon our society that everyone knew exactly what happened, but you had to actually see it.
Yeah.
To feel some sort of reaction, exactly.
It's pretty annoying.
That's what it is. It's reactive rather than proactive.
That's a great way to say it. Reactive, not proactive.
Whether he'll be someday allowed to have the opportunity to come back in the league, he's done. He had his best season 4 years ago.
Yeah, last year he sucked.
Yeah, he's at like a year off. Didn't
he have like 400 yards last season or something? Absurd.
He was awful. And sorry for being a fantasy football nerd right here, but last year he was taken in the top 10 of like most drafts and was the worst value player of all.
Didn't he have like under 500 yards?
He was awful last year. He had like 4 touchdowns the whole year.
Yeah.
So even if he comes back, he's lost so much money at this point for his contract being voided under like the character clause, and he's absolutely screwed. There's no way he's coming back from this in any way. I don't think. But
you don't think some like Jacksonville team could like pick him up in a year?
I don't think so.
Not with Chad Henne.
He would need to have a real good team around him to be able to run the way he used to run. But I was gonna say, in good news, the insane NFL marijuana policy
might be going
has
away.
been changed, and Josh Gordon's suspension was reduced, so we'll see him on the field again this year.
Nice.
Josh Gordon.
And I guess Le'Veon Bell and Blunt won't get in trouble because they got caught with weed a couple weeks ago.
They'll probably get in trouble, but it probably won't be that much of a suspension.
It always scares me with the Rooney family because they cut loose Antonio Holmes the year after he won a Super Bowl because he had weed.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Didn't Ricky Williams
Williams just like was like, fuck it, I'm not gonna play football. I like weed.
The Ricky Williams 30 for 30 is my favorite 30 for 30. I think
that's what he said in it, basically, right?
Yeah, he was like, the documentary was just about him living on his own when like he could have been an NFL running back and he got suspended like 5 different times for marijuana. But yeah, Ricky Williams is the man.
Does anyone need another beer?
I'll have a go.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Anyone?
It's a good one.
So, what does the Peanut Gallery think about this course of discussion?
Yes, we do have a lovely lady, Brice, in the studio
Very
with us.
lovely lady in the studio.
And it would be nice to get perspective.
Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your thoughts? on
all of this NFL football. Hi, I'm Pesce. So let's see. I don't know. I think that you guys have a lot of valid points. I grew up watching football. My dad's a cheesehead, so we'll go Packers. The first game.
Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Yeah. No. The first game was pretty painful to watch.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. I haven't really been following football a lot this year, though, to be perfectly honest, other than the stuff that I've seen on Ray Rice and stuff, because I'm a teacher.
Do you think that might be part of the reason you haven't been following it? Because the news is just so inundated with Ray Rice?
Yeah, I was excited for the beginning of the football season, even though I haven't been, following it super closely. But all of the shit clouds the games. You know, it's hard to want to sit down and watch ESPN and like the small moments of free time that I have. If it's just going to be flooded with shit that I don't really want to see. Like, I want to see things about the games. I want to see how all the teams are doing, especially because I don't get to follow it that much outside of it, and it's annoying. So I haven't been watching it at all. Actually, I had not really realized that until right now. Like, every single time I have gone on to see how everybody's doing and just kind of like check up, it's all this shit about Ray Rice and things that I don't really want to see. So I just leave it.
Yeah, that's so true for me too. Like the first week of the NFL, I'm usually glued to like a website or ESPN or the NFL
ESPN
Network.
App. I love waking up to that.
Yeah. But I haven't even tried, I've been purposely avoiding it. And then I think last night was the first time I actually went on ESPN to watch, and then they were just talking about Adrian Peterson. I was just like, God, can you just talk about the Cardinals comeback on Monday Night Football? Or like, the fucking anything. Like,
is it one of those things that if you
or how good the Detroit Lions looked? It was so fun watching that game. Like, did you watch that game?
No, I was just reacting.
You were watching the UCLA game, right? But Matteo was watching the UCLA game in the background.
I'm a big UCLA fan. Sorry if my attention wanders a little bit, guys, but Bruins are making it to the top this year.
I doubt it. Sorry, what you were making a point, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what if you tapped into the local radio markets, like the AM radio of that city? Maybe this could be like a little bit of a comeback for the local status.
That's true, because the national media is becoming more and more bullshit and so macro. Like, I don't know. It's like you like the populace of America has like the attention span of a goldfish at this point. This is hashtag true. Bring back our girls. They're still gone. No one gives a shit. You know, you remember that whole thing? Like that whole hashtag when those girls got kidnapped in Africa?
Well, it's like, I think...
Nigeria, yeah.
Yeah, Nigeria. Yeah, and like, they're still gone. We're not hashtagging it still. We're over it.
It's something new and worse has come along. It's, what can we focus our attention on now? Sorry, girls.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
I think it's...
We tweeted you once. You're on your own.
Yep.
Taco at one point was about how particularly Americans, but I guess it could be true for anyone, only have the attention span for like one tragedy at a time. Like when that horrible earthquake rendered 90% of Haitians without homes a few years back, everyone was really concerned for like a month, and they're still like that. They've been like that for like 5 years now, but people only cared about it for like 1 month.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I don't even think it's common knowledge that Wyclef Jean allegedly ripped off the fucking charity that he was pushing for relief. Yeah, that came out like 3 years after the relief efforts ended.
But at least the Fugees made a really dope album, though.
Yeah.
You can't fault the art for the asshole.
Yeah.
Do you think that is like a problem with our culture, or do you think that's a biological part of a human psyche that can only feel bad about something for so long? I can't tell.
That's a good point.
I think it's probably a combination of both.
I think it's
like you can't be sad about something forever. Like you can't be focused on something forever.
Yeah.
Unless you're just like a really good person, and that's pretty hard.
Yeah, unless you're like a fucking
like a saint,
Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, like dude that like you can't drink or swear in public the rest of your life again after you're one of those soldiers. Like And like that's a huge commitment, and that's what there's only like 300 active people that have done that ever.
Yeah,
right
that's a pinnacle. That's one of those pinnacle honors that honestly I don't think anybody can really wrap their head around unless you've been there. I remember seeing those guys when I was a kid. I lived in Washington D.C.
I used to live there.
That's right. Yeah. 88 to 93, I want to say I lived there. And I remember them vividly from like that being that young. I still remember vividly seeing them walk up and down in every kind of weather. Just crazy wind, freezing rain, and they're out there in pristine uniform walking back and forth.
That was one of my favorite experiences of the one and only time I visited our nation's capital was seeing those guys out there.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it is a pretty special. I think that and the Vietnam Memorial are the two coolest landmarks, probably in. I guess the unknown soldiers technically Arlington, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's Virginia, but I mean the greater DC area. Those are the two coolest.
What's the most underrated national monument in DC? Do you think?
Oh, well, I guess I have two answers for that. One, I would say the Jefferson Memorial.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Because it's right on the Potomac, and it's like kind of farther away from it, like the mall, like so it's not like the Lincoln and the Washington Monument.
Yeah.
Why is it called the Washington Monument, not Memorial? Do you know the answer? Here's a little trivia.
Why is it called the monument instead of the memorial?
Yeah.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Because they started building it before he died. So it's a monument.
I thought the answer was more complex than that. Like that seems kind of obvious.
It can only be a memorial if you were dead.
Yeah.
But they started building the Washington Monument before he died.
That's more a question of like the difference between monuments and memorials.
That was my question.
I thought it was specifically about the Washington Monument. That was the question.
You didn't look deep enough into the question. You're a very shallow human being.
But I would agree. I would say the Jefferson.
Jefferson's really cool. The Korean War Memorial is really cool too. Like all those soldiers.
It's
like
amazing.
That's really cool.
I love the Iwo Jima Memorial. That was for a while. Now they have the World War II Center out there.
Dude, that's the thing I don't get. The World War II Memorial is really cool. Why did it take them so long to build it?
Oh, years. For years, that's my point.
They built it in like the early 2000s.
Dude, for years, the Iwo Jima Monument, like the flag
was the only thing they had.
Yeah, that's all they had.
But the whole World War II one did not exist.
And the Navy Corpsmen.
That's so weird. How could that not be a monument for so long?
It was like built after Vietnam, after Korea,
yeah,
after everything else. It was like the last one they built, and it was like, I mean, I don't even think arguably. I think it's like definitely the biggest war in American history. Well, I mean, the Civil War, I guess, would be the biggest war in American history.
Still has the most American deaths as the Civil War.
At least in our more people died in the Civil War than the Revolution.
Well, if you talk,
so importance, the Revolution is obviously the most important because like we wouldn't be a country. Death-wise and like destruction to our country, Civil War.
It's still
but
Civil
like
War.
Modern 20th century, like World War II, obviously.
I think it's the war that Americans can be the most proud of.
World War II?
Yeah,
because we sacrificed the most people for other countries.
Well, World War I, I mean, just a general, obviously like a rough generalization. World War I put us on the world stage. World War II fucking solidified it. And, and that could be good or bad, however you look at it.
Yeah, World War I was crazy because we were obviously isolationists before that point. Yeah. And
Woodrow Wilson was
we had one of the smallest. We had like the 15th largest army in the world until World War I.
Yeah.
Like we weren't like a big military country at all. We were like, a little bit more than Switzerland or something. And World War I took a class on World War I. It's pretty nuts, that war. Like, just the way it was fought in general was just like suicidal. It was just a suicidal war. Like there was no aim.
Yeah. Well, my favorite poetry comes from World War I.
Oh no, yeah. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah,
like,
this is like
the class I took. We
focused
on World War I poetry, like Kipling's poetry from World War I.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
And D.H. Lawrence, like really great
Jack
poetry.
Kerouac.
A little before that.
Guys, this is a free-flowing conversation.
If you read like the poems from the front lines, there's so many people that like realize they're dying for no reason, and they're just like writing about it. It's pretty crazy.
The camaraderie was there. One of my favorite poets ever. I have his words tattooed on my arm because I was drunk as shit in New Orleans. But Alan Seeger, and he wrote. He's most famous for I Have a Rendezvous with Death, which was JFK's favorite poem, which Jackie O used to read to him, like, every night that he wasn't fucking Mimi Beardsley.
Yeah.
And, like, to me, that's one of the most romantic things ever. But even though it's about horror and death, I don't personally think it's his best work. He's one of my favorite people to read. But he would write as if he was already dead. And he was an American. He was born and raised in New York, and then he spent some time in Mexico and then went back to New York. He was an intellectual. He moved to Paris a couple years before the start of the war during the Bohemian movement, which ultimately resulted in the Beat movement, #Kerouac. And so World War I breaks out, and he was on the front lines for a year and a half before he was killed, July 1916, cut in half by machine gun fire. But he was on the front lines for a year and a half, and then he was dead for about maybe a little bit less than a year before America even joined in the war. So he was with the French Foreign Legion, along with other Americans that were mostly poets and artists that were in France, and were just like, fuck yeah, I'm drunk, I love France.
Like expatriates before expatriates was a thing.
Before it was a thing. Yeah. Or they were like kind of like discovering themselves in a gypsy sense, that they were intellects. A lot of them did come from money, and they were just kind of gypsying around Europe, and Paris was the hub back then. Threesomes and shit, photography. It was amazing. Burlesque, all that shit. It was just an amazing, amazing time. And so there was he's just an amazing person, because he was fighting as
he was more hip than Fitzgerald and Hemingway.
I really do think so. Yeah. And he's actually Pete Seeger, who I think died recently. It's Pete Seeger's uncle that he never met.
Okay.
He was, like I said, he died in the war. He was 26, I want to say. But
wow.
But yeah, just an aside. I'm sorry. I get obsessive about World War I poetry.
Do you ever read like Kipling's poetry? Like, he's so pro the war, and then his son died in the war, and his poetry kind of switches.
Yeah, complete reversal.
It's really interesting to read it.
Yeah.
Listeners, this is the Wednesday caveat. 1 second, we're talking about the NFL. We're talking about world politics and poetry. You never know what you're going to get. Listen up, nerds.
BuzzFeed, NFL, World War I poetry. It all goes together.
Where you at?
This is a free-flowing conversation that will occasionally touch on adult subjects.
Yeah, stream of consciousness. James Joyce.
And we should also mention again, we obviously mentioned it last podcast, but we're podcasting from Matteo's corner of the world, not far from Haight-Ashbury.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, is that gonna be like our douchey thing we keep saying? Like, far from the corner of Haight-Ashbury, which George Harrison once went to.
He went. You have to come here and take a picture from the outside.
Hey guys, ever heard of the Jefferson Airplane? Well, we've got it.
Currently on route.
There's a Ben & Jerry's. It's crazy, man.
There's a Whole Foods not too far from here.
Can we have a part where we actually say the address of where we're doing the radio show, and then
all the fans come next week,
and then bleep it out, like right when I say it, have like an effect that does that?
Yeah.
There will be someone. One of us will fuck that up.
We are broadcasting from.
So many thousands of people would come if that got out.
Yeah, that would.
Well, right now there's 2,400 plus people in the live room.
Yeah.
Thanks
everyone that's live chatting.
Thanks everyone in the Bud Light live room. We appreciate you guys. And thanks to our sponsor, Budweiser. Grab a Bud. Is that their slogan?
Actually, no, they don't sponsor us.
Grab some Buds.
The original Olympia beer, it's the water, is their tagline.
We
bought the cheapest beer we could find at Whole Foods, and it's called Olympia Beer. Their tagline is, "It's the water," since 1896, which reminds me of the best motto I've ever read. You know Pall Mall Reds?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a kind of cigarette. It's a cheap cigarette. Yeah. It's actually the best quality cigarette for cheap you can get.
What about Black and Milds?
Those are like cigarillos more. But so the motto for Pall Malls is, "Wherever particular people have congregated since 1895. What is that?
I know. I'm reloading my vaporizer with a very strange syringe thing.
That looks potent.
It looks like heroin.
I know. It's really, really creepy. I am a patient. I suffer from insomnia. Not that it's any of your fucking business.
Yeah. Fox.
You motherfuckers. Yeah, it's a very complex thing to get a very simple feeling, and it's just I don't know. It's
I'm
very.
gonna urinate.
I'm very
I'll be right
new
back.
to it, but
Keep the
it's
small
very
talk going.
strange. Yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that, but I like that we're pulling a Doug Stanhope, so to speak, because he always he just like throws out random sponsors on his podcast. He has one of the best podcasts fucking ever. He's just such an amazing speaker and thinker. But he's Popov's Vodka, and he's got a whole bit about how they wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. So it just reminds me of that. We're just gonna keep talking until someone that represents the original Olympia beer, it's in the water, and they're gonna give us a cease and assist.
We're waiting for that letter, Olympia. Let us know if it's too much. It's just a joke, but if you really don't want to be associated with our program, we'll switch to something else that's stupid and then run with that.
I don't know. I think we're pretty nice people, though. So why don't you just lay off?
I don't know about you, but what are your thoughts on having our Twilight segment?
Oh yeah, well that's what I was saying too. Just as the listeners know, we're kind of like learning as we go, or at least I am. I know you guys.
We're all learning as we go.
Well, it's so cool that you guys actually had a prior radio experience, because I'm just a fan. I feel like listening to podcasts and talk radio, I've put my 10,000 hours in. But
our
this is the
our
second
prior
time.
experience mainly was just like playing Cure albums for 2 hours and talking for 20 minutes.
Yeah, it would just be like
Still cool though, man.
It'd just be
Still
like
cool.
Jesus and Mary Chain song, Cure song, Dinosaur Jr. song. We would have a friend call in and joke that they were like at the Olympics, or something, which they weren't.
Talk about the
when it was a non-Olympic year.
Talk about the cultural significance of Snapchat or something like that.
And then play like.
But that
more
is a subject
bullshit.
for another day.
Hey guys.
But what I was saying is that kind of learning as we go, and I know we can minimize this, play the episode, it'll get picked up. I say if we want to sit here and watch it, pause, talk.
We
let's
could
do
even
it.
put it on. Well, I kind of want to watch that. So
Yeah. No,
we can put it on at halftime.
This is us not cramping your steez, Maddie.
Wait, are we paused? Wait, what's going on?
Should we pause it?
I don't. Wait, why is he leaving?
Well, I figured we can decide whether or not we're going to watch The Twilight Zone.
Oh, you want to watch another episode?
Wait,
Or
you
just
wanna
talk
do
about the first one?
Yeah,
I've actually been watching a lot of episodes recently.
Well, I figured if we played it while we were talking, we can pause and go.
Okay, cool.
And
Yeah,
it would.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You won't feel a thing, guys.
Won't feel a thing.
I still.
You're back with the Wednesday caveat. I'm Matt. Sitting next to me is Pesce. And on the other side is Murph.
Nice.
Hello.
It's a smooth transition, probably not.
You don't think so?
No, I meant with the music. I just kind of I just turned it off. I didn't even try and fade it. I was like,
Our audience is stupid. They won't even notice.
you little idiots.
Yeah.
BuzzFeed, what?
You guys are cool. Idiot.
So I think I was going to the bathroom when you guys set up the break. So what was the caveat there?
Nice. We were talking about going into a Twilight Zone discussion piece.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to talk I think we've addressed this before. There might be people that obviously haven't listened to our other podcasts, our one other one. But we've been, our idea is to listen to or watch episodes of Twilight Zone, starting from the first episode and moving on. We might skip episodes if episodes aren't as worth talking about. But the first episode is really good, the first episode ever. What was the title?
Where is Everybody?
Where is Everybody? Which I think just that, and when you go into the episode, it pretty much reflects the idea of isolation, which I think was big in the late 50s. The idea of like a post-nuclear situation where, though it's not necessarily directly reflected in this episode, the idea of everyone dying except for you in some kind of nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
And you kind of emerge from something and you find a dead Americana in front of you.
You're right, I think. And it's funny to think that all transpired 40 years, 30 years before we were born.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty accurate. You see in science fiction, or if you're like a Watchmen fan, I just read the book and watched the movie recently, they talk about the nuclear clock and how close the hands are to midnight, which seems like really bizarre and surreal to actually think about it in those terms. But that's actually what people thought. They thought like nuclear attacks were imminent and that everyone was going to get blown up really soon. And I think that's part of human nature to think that like your generation
will be the last
could be the last generation.
It's kind of a narcissistic.
It's very narcissistic, I think.
I mean, I think most political leaders in the 50s and 60s were narcissists.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what drove politics.
But they're not anymore.
I mean, Henry Kissinger. Is anyone bigger narcissist than, like, from what I mean, obviously I wasn't alive at the time, but I was a political science major. I read a lot about, Henry Kissinger in those times. And the whole,
Good for him. He was in China when all that Nixon shit went down.
That whole, real politics thought process, realpolitik or whatever,
cutthroat.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, also in 1959, when this episode was written, obviously it was written by Rod Serling, the man himself, mutually assured destruction between the U.S. and the Soviet Union was a very real thing. So it goes back to just the overall theme, like Matteo was saying, of what was going on at the time. And then, like Brendan was saying, that paranoia was so embedded into that generation. And Rod Serling himself was a veteran of World War II. He served in the Pacific. He was one of the few Army dogs that were in the Pacific. That was, for the most part, a Marine theater of operation. So there's something to be said about that, too. Like, he had there's realpolitik, and then there's people that had their formative years in a combat zone. And it's the outlook becomes bleak to people that were on the Pacific. A lot of them became going back to poetry, like Lawrence Ferlinghetti became a pacifist because in World War II he walked around Hiroshima 2 weeks after the bombs were dropped. So these people were so wired to be paranoid and realistic about the horrors of humanity that it reflected in the art. Life reflected art, whereas now art's reflecting life, and not in a good way, because we're dumbed. We're just completely dumbed down at this point.
Like, art wants to make us look better than we are nowadays.
Yes, sir.
And we're BuzzFeed assholes. To link it back to that.
Yeah.
But also, this is kind of a tangent, but I thought it was interesting what you said, how mutually assured destruction was a big thing, and how I remember reading about how a lot of big compromises between the East and the West they weren't about ending nuclear weapons. They're about ending our defensive weapons that would intercept nukes.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to end that so that we couldn't create a world where we could intercept a nuclear missile. We wanted to be take those out of the mix so that nuclear weapons are way more important because they can't intercept it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys ever read about stuff like that, but
not as in depth as you, I'm sure.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm not too far out of the age when I was reading that stuff, but I remember reading about how there was big movements between the East and the West to make, what's the word, pacts or like treaties about like getting rid of interceptor missiles that could shoot down nukes because like they thought it was more important to get rid of that so that you knew if a nuke was launched it would be the end.
Yeah.
Than getting rid of Star Wars. I think that was Reagan and Nixon.
That was Reagan. That came later, but that was absolutely a thought. Like, yeah.
I don't know if the listeners are aware, but whenever B. Murph and Pesce are talking about something interesting, I like to just say something that like an idiot would say that doesn't have a lot to do with what they're saying, but something that like seems related. Like if they're talking about poetry, but like 1920s poetry, I'll just say Kerouac.
Yeah, no.
That's like way
it's
afterwards.
the caveat in the conversation.
I'm not as stupid as I'm.
No, he isn't.
But yeah,
it's a trope.
We'll see.
We're formulating the art of this podcast, man. It's a lovely caveat, if you ask me.
Can you say that exact same thing again, but in a singing voice?
I forgot what I said.
Formulating the art of this podcast.
We are formulating the art of this podcast. The Wednesday caveat.
Pesce.
Matteo.
Beaver.
Right, that was good. That was wonderful.
Yeah,
we also do acapella.
Yeah.
Now I get it. I get that.
Thanks again to our sponsors, the Mindy Project, premiering Tuesdays at 9
on
Fox.
Seinfeld sponsored us. The show Seinfeld from the 90s sponsored us.
Given Seinfeld took place quite a while ago, but they're still sponsoring us.
Yeah.
Buy the box set on DVD now at your local radio store.
They're all over the place.
We're also sponsored by Apple and Google, which is pretty big for us.
Yeah. Those are a big company. I don't know if you guys have heard, but
the
iPhone 6, what?
Yeah, all of our listeners will get an iPhone 6 if they subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Just enter the promo code 510.
No, enter the promo code. Yeah, we love listening to the Wednesday Caveat.
They just support the local arts, and it's a wonderful program.
Should we decide on the right way to say the word that's part of our title, the Wednesday? Can we decide on the right way that we're all going to say that?
The caveat?
I think we should all decide to say it incorrectly.
The caveat?
Caveat. I'm caveat.
The caveat. The Wednesday caveat.
The Wednesday caveat.
Cavito. Caviotoce. It's my Italian. Caviotoce.
Cavioto.
So this episode is the first episode of The Twilight Zone that aired on television. And Rod Serling wanted to have a different episode be the first episode, but executives thought that the one he propositioned was a bit too extreme. And that was an episode where anyone over the age of 60 years old...
Shower in 5 minutes, sorry.
Just keep the water pressure down. Keep the water pressure down.
There you go. That's our housemate, Rebecca. Would you like to come say hi at this point?
Can it hear me from here?
Probably not. That's why we're saying it.
Hey.
Are you not proper?
I'm not.
You're not.
I don't have a shirt on right now.
Did you hear our BuzzFeed articles?
I heard people that look like IKEA furniture, and I really liked that one.
That was a real one.
That was a good one.
Can you introduce yourself really quick?
And just try not to yell, please.
I always yell. I live in this apartment with the people that run this podcast. I don't know if you guys have
Don't say the address. We don't want all our fans
I'm
to
gonna
come
say the
here.
address. The address is. All I do is sleep all day and eat and drink beer. So.
We're sponsored by Bell's Brewery.
Yeah, we're sponsored by Bell's Brewery. We get that shipped to us at least once a week. So if you're listening, Bell's, people there, we need more beer. Also sponsored by Russian River Brewing Company, located in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Rebecca.
And she's off.
Appreciate that.
Our lawyers are going to have a field day with all these fake sponsorships.
She's going to take a shower right now, so if you hear a little bit of water, that's not your set. That's the show.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of soothing in the background.
Yeah.
Really.
I like it.
Nice. I'm sorry. So Matteo was talking about Rod Serling's initial intentions with the first episode of The Twilight Zone.
That's right. And I think you could speak on it just as well, if not better than me. But that initially he wanted the first episode to be where anyone who was over the age of 60, anyone who reached the age of 60 was automatically euthanized. And the episode was just about that. He wrote The Giver, but not The Taker. And
because that is kind of a similar thing on the.
It is. But they told him that wasn't okay. Like they needed to air.
They weren't ready.
Something more palatable, and they came up with "Where Is Everyone?" or "Where Is Everybody?" which I think is just as terrifying as the episode that they talked about. Would you like to give some introduction to the episode, Pesce or B. Murph?
Can I say one thing before we do straight introductions? So this episode, I don't want to ruin that. I guess I can't say it.
It's spoiler alert, 1959, bro. Say what you want.
I think we're assuming that everyone has watched the episode.
Yeah, I mean, if they're like,
we're not giving
either they're Twilight Zone episode fans and they already have seen it, or they don't care and they're just listening.
And they'll just go back and
we're giving our interpretation of it.
So in the end, if you find out that he was an astronaut, or he was going to be an astronaut, he was in an isolation chamber.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys have. I've been watching a lot of the first season recently, and I noticed a lot of it. At least, okay, so this episode deals with a potential astronaut. I mean, throughout the episode, he's in like a small town. And he thinks he's like no one's around, but it turns out at the end that he's in an isolation chamber, trained to be an astronaut. Within the first season, there was another episode where there's these astronauts that land on an asteroid, and there's all these. It looks like America, but they're all frozen. I don't know if you guys have seen that episode. They're all like still figures.
Yes.
Yeah. So like that is also based on space travel. There's that one episode called like Mulberry Street or something, where like they're all on a little Americana street in the 1950s, and like everyone's electricity goes out, and certain houses turn on, and it kind of goes into McCarthyism. Like they all start blaming each other as being like aliens. Yeah. And then there's another episode I watched where these guys went to space and came back, and all hell breaks loose. So like you really get in the psyche of like 50s, 60s of like space travel and like projecting your fears of the East, like Russia, but projecting it on like space.
Yes.
And like, you know, like aliens, Martians, but you know, it's kind of a thin facade to like just like anyone outside of America. It's all, you know, it's all like a.
It's just masked xenophobia.
Yeah, exactly.
The entirety of the Twilight Zone is that it's a double entendre. It's just absolutely ridiculous and out there, and what we all know and grew up saying, like, oh man, that's some shit out of the Twilight Zone. It's taking the crazy concepts of what we can actually come up with. Sometimes in this context, the paranoia of the late 50s, early 60s, and making it a double entendre for shit that applies day to day. And it's amazing that a lot of this stuff still holds up.
Yeah. I mean, we're still scared of the East. It's not the Middle East. It's not, you know, Russia.
Yeah.
But, you know, not much has really changed. There's still, it's not communism, it's Islam now.
Yeah,
yeah. And honestly, I find Islam scarier than communism. At least, obviously, radical Islam.
Radical Islam is
which is
not to be politically incorrect. Oh, it's a peaceful religion. Whatever. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we always make sure to be politically correct on the show.
We should be called the politically correct caveat.
Yeah.
But it'll be like ironic, get it?
Get it? Because we say what we want to say.
Well,
let
also
the words fall out.
Even
let the words fall out.
But even in terms of the Cold War, you know, there's historians, there's you know, present day historians, which I don't really know like what the proper term to use would be, but you know, political science studies the now, and there's recent historians too. That's like a thing, you know, and it's kind of in between historians and political scientists. But there's you know, recent historians that are saying that the Cold War is not over, that the Syrian conflict that started, you know, roughly a year and a half ago is a continuation of the Cold War from the late 80s. And,
because they're heavily backed by Russia.
Yeah,
Syria.
Yeah, so it's almost like conflict still repeat itself. But
I mean,
I agree. Like in terms of worldly scale, it's the Middle East more so than the somewhat Far East.
Yeah,
which isn't even because the world is fucking wraps around, and it's like Cuba to Florida. It's not too much different between the Bering Strait, where Alaska and Russia are pretty close.
No, not at all.
So it's really, in World War II there was mass defensive techniques that were going towards Alaska, and it was because of that reason.
This episode's from the whole first season's from '59, so this is pre-Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes,
which I think is important to note.
This is before Irish people were white.
Yeah, exactly. It's before Irish people were white, and this is pre the height of Cold War scare, and it's already to this zenith. Well, it's not really a zenith, but it's already at this level where it's so clear to us, 40 years later, that this is what they were projecting, but just calling it space.
Yeah.
And Martians, but it only got worse, and I think probably later seasons of the Twilight Zone probably are more revert. From my memory, because I remember episodes that are Gaber's jostulating because UCLA just had a big run.
Jordan James, my guy. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go on.
Stop ruining this caveat.
We're having a moment.
But yeah, I mean, Twilight Zone is I think it's not stuck in its time in any way.
Yeah.
It's so transcendent generation-wise. I loved it when I was little. I love it now.
Yeah.
I
always watch the 4th of July marathon and the New Year's Eve marathon. I watch it every year.
It was my favorite place in Disney World as a kid, too. I went there 3 or 4 times as a kid in Florida, and they had the Tower of Terror. The Tower of Terror.
Yeah,
and you put the penny up on your hand, and you drop, and it ends up hitting somebody, and little asshole kids from Long Island. It's the funniest thing ever. Except the gears.
This particular episode was a great one to start off on, I think, because it encapsulates what a lot of the Twilight Zone is about, preying on people's fears for isolation, and a lot of Twilight Zone episodes are about isolation and loneliness and how you can deal with those sorts of things.
What I liked about it was there's subtle hints that you couldn't pick up on it until you saw the ending where you realized he was in an isolation chamber. Mm. But those subtle parts where he was in the phone booth and he couldn't get out for that little bit of time. He was stuck in that phone booth. He had to smash through it. Yeah. And that obviously symbolized him actually being within 4 walls. Yeah. And I think there was another part. Wasn't he stuck in he went to a movie theater at one point? Did he get
He thought he figured out who he was because he saw that the character in the movie theater he entered was dressed exactly like him, and he realized he was in the Air Force. And he goes around yelling in the movie theater, "I'm in the Air Force! I'm in the Air Force!"
Yeah. And then, wasn't there something with a blinking street light at the very end that
It wasn't the blinking street light, but it was the walk, don't walk sign.
Oh, yeah. And how did that link him back? Didn't that bring him back to reality?
Yeah, he goes to the sign and
he's hitting the button.
He's hitting the button for the walk button, but it's really the distress button
inside the capsule
tank that he's
which in. I didn't think of this until right now, but didn't you think that whole hit the button to walk was a recent invention?
Within that's a good point, yeah.
The early 2000s is when that started, but apparently that wasn't because he was hitting that button.
I never thought that.
I didn't think society gave a shit about blind or deaf people until Helen Keller's.
Well, that wasn't the blind or deaf people thing. That was just the pedestrian walk button.
I know, but I don't remember those buttons until I was in middle school and high school existing.
Well, you were drinking at an early age.
Mm. Yeah, that's true.
They're for pedestrians.
Irish families, right?
No, the things for the blind people were like that sound of
yeah. I always thought it was for handicap walkers and stuff. UCLA touchdown.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that the actor in the show, I can't think of his name offhand, in the first episode, suggested to Rod that there would be
Earl Hollyman played Mike Ferris.
There would be a movie ticket placed in his pocket that would fall out of his pocket as he was being moved
From the isolation chamber?
out of the isolation chamber.
That would have been so
to
much
give
cooler.
sort of a twist, like, was
Wait.
it real or wasn't it real? Was it a figment of his imagination or what was reality? But that's when Rod Sterling specifically set the tone for the show, and he said that
It will all be fake.
Yeah, I want everything to be very real. I don't want there to be any question in the audience's mind that of if this is like some fantasy or if it's actually depicting like a real world scenario. And I think you can see that for future episodes of The Twilight Zone. Like,
well, there's certainly ones that rival fantasy. Like, there's certain things that aren't completely grounded in reality, like Talking Tina, Night of the Living Doll, or I think.
But I think you can go back and.
Or the
not to correct, because I don't know if I'm right, but I think you can go back and blame those on like psychological maladies.
That's true, because like everyone around the father in that episode keeps telling him he's crazy.
He's the only one that thinks that's
true.
happening.
That's a good point. Yeah, it could just be psychosis and or schizophrenic kind of.
But actually, not in Terror at 10,000 Feet, starring William Shatner.
Because they find the wing.
At the end, they find like the cover torn off of the wing.
Yeah.
And I guess in that one, there is some realism to the creature that's hobbling along the wing of the plane.
Yeah, that's true. And at the end of Maple Street or something, I think it's called, where like it's like the McCarthyism episode where they keep getting fixated on each other's neighbors because like they think aliens are coming and like each other's power keeps turning on and like scaring them. Yeah. At the end, they like go into full out riot and start killing each other, and then like zooms out and there's these people like they look like Martians kind of, and they're like, "This is all we have to do to make the Earthlings kill each other." It's like mess with them, but that's still based in reality, I guess. Like, there's never like something completely ghostly or supernatural, because like technically a Martian could exist. There's something which I guess space aliens aren't supernatural technically because they could exist. I mean, I guess now we know Martians probably don't exist because we've been to Mars with rovers. Like, we're pretty sure like
they're underground.
Like, cities on Mars.
Could be crab people.
Yeah,
could be crab.
There might be microscopic life in the water.
Pesce, what do you think about the acting in the first episode of The Twilight Zone?
Everything is very overpronounced and vaudevillian.
Yeah,
which was the style back then. But also, like you guys both said, it's a very visual episode. Like, I have it queued up. I'd like to play the intro at some point just because I'm jonesing to hear that whole fucking Twilight Zone thing. But you're totally right. Like, there's dialogue from the one guy, but it's when he's talking to himself. Mm-hmm. And really, besides the intro, we don't have much more except for what we visually interpret. Jesus Christ.
It reminds me of like Charlton Heston acting, like get your hands off me, you damn dirty. It's like so like like
overpronounced.
They're like orators. Yeah. They're like early actors. They're like obsessed with oration.
I love Mike Ferris's initial monologue when he walks into the coffee shop, into the restaurant. He's like, I'm a paying customer here. I've got money.
Yeah,
and he keeps going on, really, and then he starts talking to himself, and he keeps doing that in different parts. Again, in the ice cream shop later, and I think it's so it's dated, but I think it's really cool.
No, I found that really interesting too. I remember like making a note of that, like how it's like so different now. You would never walk into a place and think like, I need to let people know I have money right now.
Yeah,
like if I'm not getting served at a place, I think it's just because they're busy or like they're kind of being rude. I would never think like I need to prove I have the cash flow.
Yeah,
like
true.
But like back then, I was like, I'm a paying customer. I have 20 cents. Like whatever the fuck they had back then.
God damn it! I want the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah,
it's interesting too that in your idea of if you ever had severe amnesia, do you think you could ever forget that you're American because you're speaking English?
I know. I've always thought about that, but
because that's one of the first things he realizes. He pulls out a couple dollars and he realizes like, oh, it's American money. He says that to himself.
I'm at the point where I think any disease, any
that
disease, like mental disease, I know could convince me of anything because when you're in a dream, it's so real. I can be a different person in a dream.
Have you ever dreamed you were of a different nationality or?
Yes, I've been a different person in a dream, and I totally believe it while it's happening. And, like, there's, you know, I mean, we're just a sack of chemicals in a way, you know? Like,
Kurt Vonnegut.
did he say that?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like him. I'm just saying, like...
Welcome to the Monkey House, folks. You guys are listening to the Wednesday Caveat. I'm here with Bieber.
Hit that bed.
And Pesce.
Play the bed. Caveat. No, but... I mean, I know, like, chemically or, like, disease-wise, or amnesia-wise, I could be convinced of anything. So, if you're in an isolation tank and you're just... What do you think the same thing? Like,
oh, yeah. Well, that's...
You've been in way more extreme situations than I have, so...
Well, just, like, as far as isolation, you know, that's just my own fault for... thank you. For being so goddamn antisocial by nature. But, you know, it's a psychological thing that if you're alone by yourself without some kind of interaction with another human for more than 10 days, you really get looped. You know, and I based that off of just a conversation I had with a professor one time. And I told him that, like, maybe the max that I did was 4 days by myself, and it was probably by choice, just to be left the fuck alone. And then we got into the conversation about... And I remember him saying 10 days. So I imagine, like, if you're on your own in isolation for 10 days, you're gonna converse with yourself. Like, a lot of the time, you see artists like David Cho was talking about when he was in jail in either Japan or China. And he was only in for, like, a month, 2 months max. And he got so, like, into himself, and they hated him because he was Korean American and you know, just foreign, so they said fuck you. And he's in this tank and he started using his excrement to paint shit on the wall. He's not a crazy person, like, he kind of is, but at the same time he's together, he knows what he's doing. Born and raised in LA, you know what I mean? Like, he's together, but even he lost it, you know. And he's like somebody that can somebody that knows how to create his own universe, you know.
And even just loss of daylight can fuck with you. I can say this personally, like, this is such a small microcosm of what we're talking about, but...
A small microcosm?
So just, I guess that's redundant. But I went home for Christmas one year, you know, after living out here on the West Coast, and obviously there's a time change, so I was like 3 hours behind, and it was the winter, and it was Pennsylvania, so it was overcast and dark all day long either way, but it's also, like, gets dark at, like, 4:30. So... I got home and I would fall asleep at like 4 in the morning and wake up at 4 in the afternoon. So I didn't see daylight for like a week. And I was just like, and even then I got a little like loopy, just like hanging out. Like, even though I was at home with my family, like pretty like sobering situation, you know, like pretty, you know, even tone kind of.
Have your wits about you.
Yeah, like, you know, like nothing, it's not like I was like fucking railing lines and like, Hunter S. Thompson in it. I was just like not seeing daylight for several days, and even then I kind of was like getting a lot out of it. So I'm like, isolation is like, that's why they say like what's his name, Terry Nichols, is that his name? The guy, not McVeigh, but the other guy that did the Oklahoma City bombing.
Oh, I don't know.
He's in that Supermax in Colorado. I think his name's Terry Nichols.
Our host Murph has extraordinary knowledge of the history of terrorist attacks in the United States.
Horrific things.
Oh, which, all right, I'll go, after I say this, I'll go back and clarify something we said last week, as far as terrorists. But yeah, Terry Nichols is in a Supermax in Colorado. He gets out of his solitary confinement 1 hour a day. That's all he gets. Like, that's so
no
much.
Vitamin D.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sunlight will fuck. I'm sure he's completely insane.
Do you think the Beach Boys could have written all those records without the California sun?
Hell no.
But to correct what we said last week, I watched a documentary on Columbine since last week. And you know how we said that Dylan Klebold was the star and Eric Harris was the second fiddle?
That was always my premise.
Apparently, Eric Harris was like the mastermind behind it, and Dylan Klebold was kind of like the younger, influenced guy.
The quiet ones always are the mastermind.
So credit to where credit's due. Eric Harris was the mastermind behind the starting of the school shooting culture.
I'll cheers you with lava.
Jesus no, Christ. It's Marilyn Manson, actually.
It was his fault.
Dude, Marilyn Manson's interview in Bowling for Columbine is so good.
I don't remember Bowling.
Can we play that on YouTube? We could probably play it on YouTube. He has such a good interview in Bowling for Columbine about how you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
You know, how stupid it is to blame music in like movie culture for like what they did. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very poignant. I can put it up on my phone or something. We can play it if that's easier. Or I can play it through my phone on these speakers.
Oh, no, I got it. Yeah, I can set it up right now.
But, that's actually, dude, that's probably one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Bowling for Columbine
Are we
so
gonna
there. It makes up for all the really horrible, like, not good stuff that Michael Moore has also done.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies. I liked his earlier, like, I didn't watch Sicko.
What was the one about the
I didn't watch
economy
Capitalism, A Love Story.
I thought that was so bad.
But I loved Roger and Me, was really good. And I loved Bowling for Columbine. And I loved Fahrenheit 9/11, to be honest.
Fahrenheit.
I thought that was
Fahrenheit 9/11 infuriated me.
Really?
Yeah.
We're probably on opposite sides there.
Oh, God. That was one of those fucking... The ending especially, man. He just ruined somebody's career for being an idiot. That guy should have just gotten his ass kicked from his comrades.
I mean, what he did to
was
Charlton
called a
Heston
dead-
on Bowling for Columbine was gross, too. Like, Charlton Heston was on the early stages of Alzheimer's. We did that interview with him at the Bowling for Columbine.
Jesus.
And, like, just, like, left the picture of a girl from a school shooting, like, on his porch and, like, walked away. As if it's Charlton Heston's fault that a girl was shot. Like, I'm not a huge NRA fan, but, like, you can't blame Charlton Heston for being a figurehead of the NRA for school shootings. Like,
Yeah.
It's fear. It's
stupid.
Yeah,
it's just as bad on the right as it is on the left, and that's an example of it as being as bad on the left.
Olbermann, are you listening?
Olbermann, get back to us.
Want to check out the scene?
Get back
part
to
of
the
it.
middle.
Indeed, something to fear.
Yeah.
They had turned into little monsters.
This is the
This is the
one.
Marilyn Manson bullet.
Sorry if it got loud when I moved the mic. I might have made a dragging noise.
Heavy metal subculture. Where were the parents?
Violent movies,
South Park.
video games,
Television. Entertainment. Satan. Cartoons. Film.
Society?
toy guns, drugs.
Shock rocker. Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson has canceled the last 5 dates of his U.S.
Marilyn
tour
Manson.
out of respect for those lost in Littleton. But the singer says artists like himself are not the ones to blame.
This is perhaps the sickest group ever promoted by a mainstream record company.
Joe Lieberman.
To a God that doesn't exist.
I remember this.
After Columbine, it seemed that the entire focus on why the shootings occurred was because the killers listened to Marilyn Manson. 2 years after Columbine, Manson finally returned to Denver.
The Ozfest at Mile High Stadium brings shock rocker Marilyn Manson to Denver tomorrow.
There were protests from the religious right. But I thought I'd go and talk with him myself.
When I was a kid growing up, music was the escape. That's the only thing that had no judgments. You know, you put on a record and it's not going to yell at you for dressing the way you do. It's going to make you feel better about it.
Mm-hmm.
Some will be so brash to ask if we believe that all who hear Manson tomorrow night will go out and commit violent acts. The answer is no. But does everybody who watches a Lexus ad go and buy a Lexus? No.
Worst metaphor
But a few
ever.
do.
I definitely can see why they would pick me.
Socio-political
Because I
divide.
think it's easy to throw my face on a TV because I'm, in the end, sort of a poster boy for fear. Because I represent what everyone's afraid of. Because I do and say what I want.
If Marilyn Manson can walk into our town and promote hate, violence, suicide, death, drug use, and Columbine-like behavior, I can say, not without a fight you can't.
The two byproducts of that whole tragedy were violence and entertainment and gun control. And how perfect that was the two things that we were going to talk about with the upcoming election. And also then we forgot about Monica Lewinsky. And we forgot about the president was shooting bombs overseas, yet I'm a bad guy because I've sang some rock and roll songs. And who's a bigger influence, the president or Marilyn Manson?
Do you know,
I'd like to think me, but I'm going to go with the president.
do you know that the day that Columbine happened, the United States dropped more
I actually
bombs on
might
Kosovo than
disagree with that point. That a very popular musician might be more culturally influential than the
Yeah, in some ways. But this is a good point he's about to bring up, how it just got cut halfway through he was saying it, but like how the day that Columbine happened, America dropped more bombs on Kosovo than any other day.
Yeah.
Also, I also think I've actually done a lot of research in the Yugoslavian conflict. Milosevic was an asshole. Like, we should have gone into Yugoslavia. Like, that was a genocide. Like, we should have bombed Kosovo. Like, it was not a good thing.
Yeah, I had a friend that was there. He was a sniper in the Polish army. He spent 6 months in Bosnia, 6 months in Kosovo.
Dude,
You don't fuck around, man.
Fucking Bosnia-Herzegovina at that time, like, any of that. Croatia, like, obviously, Albania, Kosovo, like, not good times. That's actually, but I felt like that was a just war, because that was a genocide. Like, against Muslims in that region.
Well, what he does is a crime against research. He knows about points, or he knows about other information, Michael Moore, I mean, and he doesn't mention it.
Yeah, like, that was such
if he was
bullshit thing. Like, did you mention that? That's like saying, like, if something happened during, like, World War II, like, well, did you mention D-Day was that day and we killed more Germans than the other day?
Yeah.
No, but, like, we should have done that.
Yeah, that was a fucking just... That was just fucking straight up balls and bravery and harsh plans, but it had to be done at that time.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a lack of...
it would make more sense if he said, like, did you know that day we didn't do anything in Rwanda?
Yeah.
That would have made more sense. Like, he didn't do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. The inaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he gets off on disenfranchising realism.
Yeah. And I like certain things about him. I do like this documentary. I like the point that he doesn't make a real thesis in this documentary, in my opinion.
No, he
kind of leaves it open to debate, which is kind of cool. Even though it's kind of obvious he's anti-gun, but he isn't too hard line about it during it. He kind of leaves it up that we don't know what America's problem with violence is. He doesn't blame it necessarily on guns. Because he keeps up bringing up like how Canada has more guns and how Germany has a more violent history than us, but yet they still have less violence than us. He kind of leaves it open, like it's kind of hard to pinpoint America's problem with violence.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know. What about human nature? What if it just transcends nation? You know, what if it's just human beings?
Well, then why is our nation more? I think it might be more down to like stress. Like Americans work more than any other nation in the world.
August is the time to do double. Labor, but well, I mean, like August is when most of a lot of the first world takes August off. Yeah. And what do Americans do? Especially even when I was a kid, when I was fucking 12, 13, I was like started working like at a bagel shop and I was an umpire for fucking Little League. It was awesome. But like nice. August is a month that you can get more work in because you're not at school. Exactly. Like that, you know, even as kids, that's how we thought. You know, and I'm not saying that other nations are lazy. I'm saying that maybe they just have a better thought out structure. But we, we have a hard time accepting what's what, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing because it really takes a toll on you mentally and physically. Yeah.
All right, let's finish this interview. It's about to finish this Kosovo state.
Any other time during that war?
I do know that, and I think that that's really ironic. You know that nobody said, well, maybe the president had an influence on this violent behavior. No, because that's not the way the media wants to take it and spin and turn it into fear. Because then you're watching television, you're watching the news, you're being pumped full of fear. There's floods, there's AIDS, there's murder. Cut to commercial.
Oh, they cut off the best part of the interview. Wait, is there a part 2?
Fear and consumption.
Yeah, that might be it. Because he goes into like, if you do this, the girl's not going.
But who was to blame? All the experts had an answer.
The president.
Do you know that the day that Columbine happened, the United States dropped more bombs on Kosovo than any other time during that war?
I do know that, and I think that that's really ironic. You know that nobody said, well, maybe the president had an influence on this violent behavior. No, because that's not the way the media wants to take it and spin and turn it into fear. Because then you're watching television, you're watching the news, you're being pumped full of fear. There's floods, there's AIDS, there's murder. Cut to commercial. Buy the Acura, buy the Colgate. If you have bad breath, they're not going to talk to you. If you got pimples, the girl's not going to fuck you. And it's just it's a campaign of fear and consumption. And that's what I think that it's all based on, is the whole idea that keep everyone afraid and they'll consume. Mm-hmm. And that's really as simple as it can be boiled down to.
Right. If you were to talk directly to the kids at Columbine or the people in that community, what would you say to them if they were here right now?
I wouldn't say a single word to them. I would listen to what they have to say, and that's what no one did.
It's a brilliant point.
Yeah. They were both like smart people apparently too. Like they're in like honors classes. Sorry, this mic is probably making noise while I move it. Yeah, because I just watched like a documentary on it the other day because we talked about it last week. So I like watched a story on it. It was pretty interesting.
They usually are pretty intelligent. And as far as like, especially child-on-child violence, violence itself, I mean, is a multifaceted problem. It's rooted in so many different things, but especially child-on-child, I mean, it's like the most disturbing kind.
Yeah.
You know, like it's obviously something that the adults who are raising them aren't doing. It's so deep-rooted in not just your own behavior, but the fact that so many things are not being addressed across socioeconomic, levels, and it's just such a big problem.
Yeah,
there's so many faces and so many factors that play into it.
It's so easy to blame it on the wrong things, like
yes, exactly. They're blaming it on him, but really, like,
or they'll blame it on like violent video games or something. But I watched Penn and Teller used to have that show Bullshit. It was called Penn and Teller Bullshit.
I've never seen that.
But they have you guys ever seen it?
Would say that again?
Penn and Teller Bullshit. It was a show on Showtime.
No, I'm not a huge fan of that.
They did one thing about like violence with kids, and they in video game violence specifically, and they took this kid that loved violent video games, and like he was like super into violent video games, and like maybe like certain people would consider that kid a risk for like violence in a school, and they took him to a gun range and had him shoot a gun, and he cried. Because like shooting a real gun is so different, and like he shot a gun and he didn't even want to shoot another bullet. He like cried because he didn't like doing it. Like, so I think that kind of exemplified how like video game violence might be the wrong thing to like blame stuff on. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, in some situations it might be valid. I don't know. I'm not trying to be like that one Florida lawyer. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well,
what's his name? That guy that like sued like Rockstar Games because of Grand Theft Auto and shit. Like, I forget his name. He's just like the lawyer from Florida that was like in the news in the early 2000s.
Johnny money hungry dickbag.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a complex issue that like everyone wants to label it one way, and it's an unlabeled. It can't be labeled. It's just, like. You can't give recognition, like, say there's I'm trying to put it down to, like, sports, maybe, like, if there's a great play in sports, and it, like, ends in a touchdown, like, can you really say, like, oh, the running back did that, or is it, like, a bunch of factors happen?
Yeah. Like, interweaved. Lots and lots of, like, things have to be right for it to happen.
Yeah.
Not that a school shooting is as cool as a touchdown. I wasn't trying to say
No. But like just to heighten your analogy for the 2,400 plus listeners in the live room right now, it brings it back to the community. It's the community, and it's not necessarily anything more specific. It's the community, which is a geographical fact. Where you are, the surroundings of where you are, that's your community. Race, that shit doesn't matter. Religion doesn't matter. It's the boiled down fact that you are here and this is what surrounds you. And that's your community. You are a part of it, whether or not you feel it or not. You are a part of that community, and how that community accepts or rejects certain people is a big inflammation of violence, especially violence in youth.
Yeah. Very true. On point. Matteo, any thoughts? Stop watching UCLA lose.
I think
we're tied.
Shut up. Summed it up pretty well. That Marilyn Manson interview kind of says it all. I hadn't seen that in a long time. The part of him that's so poignant and such a smart thing to say. When Michael Moore asks him, "What would you say to them?" He says, "I wouldn't say a thing.
Yeah,
I would listen." And that's the main problem in those kind of scenarios. Is everyone's looking for someone to blame, but it's like it's to me, I think about the debate of how we're paying so much money to hospitals to cure disease when really we should be trying to find the root of the problem, which is health.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think in some ways that's kind of the same thing. You have to search for the root of the problem and talk to people instead of just looking for someone to blame and trying to eliminate the actual enactor of some sort of violence or some sort of
That was the perfect. I would say that that's the best interview in the documentary, but there's one that's better, I think. And a lot of people forget.
In its entirety.
He's an interview with Matt Stone and Trey Parker from South Park, who went to Columbine High School.
Yeah, that's right.
No way.
Yeah, they went to Columbine High School. They're from Littleton.
Wow.
And they say, like, when he asked them what he would say to them, he's like, because they were both seniors. He's like,
when that happened?
Yeah. No. Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris were seniors, but Trey Parker and Matt Stone were out of school.
Yeah.
But they just wanted to say, like, they said, like, we just be like, dude, you're about to leave it. Like, high school, it's over. Like, just move on. Like, they were saying, like, we were complete losers in high school. Like, and look what we made of ourselves. Like, you can't, like, we made basketball, bro. Like,
That's actually
the Lazy Boy?
That's actually a really good movie.
It's an instant classic.
Siskel and Ebert panned it, but I liked it. I actually watched recently Siskel and Ebert. Maybe we could watch that right now. Review basketball on their show. And they're like, we don't get it. Everyone makes the shot. Everyone makes the shot. No one misses it. And that's all they fixated on was how, like, no one missed in basketball. It's all pointless.
It sounds like that old Pink Floyd interview by the, like, classical opera musician who says, like...
it's just noise.
No, he says, it may be a bit of a reversion to childhood, but why not?
Yeah, except they didn't even say that. Begin. I'll go check who's at the door.
Uh-oh. They're coming for us.
It's a call.
Guys, if this is the last transmission of the Wednesday Caveat, then we wish you well and Godspeed.
It's been an honor to have our dicks in your ears.
But yeah, and I would say...
Abigail's here.
Recording.
You're back with the Wednesday Caveat. I'm Matteo. You're listening to Murph and Pesce as well. Welcome back.
Sorry for the noise of the mic moving. We're low budget, but we love it.
So it should be, man.
Is that the motto of our show? We're low budget, but we love it.
Yeah.
Is that from something, or did you just think of that?
No, Bill Paxton said it in Twister. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I didn't realize Philip Seymour Hoffman was in Twister.
Yeah, he played Dusty.
It was before he realized that everyone else saw how brilliant he knew he had already.
It was a hard transition out of Columbine talk, but we're just on Twister now.
Yeah, it's just coming back a little bit.
But yeah, I guess we can move out of school shootings. So it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
After the NFL, we went to like World War I school shootings. It got pretty heavy, I guess.
Yeah.
It's been
like a
BuzzFeed, guys. Let's end it lightly.
If you have any input or are interested in anything about the show, have any questions, you can email thewednesdaycaveat@gmail.com. We'll respond to your emails, and thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead, sir.
No, you go.
I was going to say Twitter @awkward, AWEKWORD, and Instagram @awkward, AWE_K_WORD.
Nice. We should probably make our own Twitter just for the show.
Yeah.
That really helps.
Do we have
for
an
now?
email?
Martian Ballhard is an affiliate.
Yeah, we can just use that. Chase can answer that.
At Martian Ballhard is also an affiliate, so
Nice.
if you're interested.
And we should just remind the listeners that caveat is spelled CAVEAT. EAT.
E.
Yeah.
With an E.
An E after the T.
Yes.
No, just one E. Sorry.
God damn it. We should probably move into a lighter subject. We went from domestic abuse, World War I, Cold War, Columbine.
We tackled the serious topics up here on the Wednesday caveat.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. Sometimes our conversations veer to mature subjects, so
yeah,
listener discretion advised,
ladies and gentlemen.
And not to circle back, but to circle back.
We're gonna oval back.
I've been jonesing to hear
let's
either.
play it,
Yeah, you want to hear a little?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Twilight Zone. A little bit of Rod Serling, or we can do the intro to the first. What do you guys feel?
Rod, what do you have to say?
And we'll learn what he means by the price tag that hangs on success. Way back in 1951, when television was just a baby, a young man sat in a Cincinnati diner with his wife and came to a momentous decision.
Yeah.
He decided to give up the security of his job and take a chance in becoming a freelance television writer. Rod, first of all, let me ask you this. What was it that brought that decision about? Was it a burning desire to write because you felt that you had to say something, or was it just a way to make more money?
A combination of many things, Mike. The immediate motive at the time, the prodding thing that pushed me into it, was that I'd been writing for a Cincinnati television station as a staff writer, which is a particularly dreamless occupation.
The listener should know Rod has a cigarette in his hands the entire interview.
I like how he said a particularly dreamless occupation. That was amazing.
His vocabulary is brilliant.
Been making up letters of, what do they call it? To plug a product. Somebody has used it. Testimonial letters. As I recall, there was a drug, a liquid drug on the market at the time that could cure everything from arthritis to a fractured pelvis. And I actually had to write testimonial letters. And on that particular day, I just had it. And though I had been freelancing concurrent with the staff job, the best year I'd ever had, I think we netted about $700, which is hardly even grocery money.
Yeah.
And that one night, we just decided to, sink or swim and go into it.
So you came here to New York?
Not immediately. We stayed on 6 months, I guess, in Ohio, and came to New York. Started principally in Lux Video Theater, then live and half-hour emanating from New York. I did 11 shows for them, and I was sort of on my way from that point on.
And what kind of stuff did you write? Because you said that it wasn't just the money, it was something that you wanted to say that you weren't getting a chance to say in Cincinnati.
Well, in those days, Lux Video, as one show, was doing reasonably adult stuff. Mm-hmm. These, of course, were not Playhouse 90s, nor were they award-winning shows, but they were reasonably mature things that even today stand up pretty well. And I was doing Lux Video, craft theater, the early so-called pioneer days of television, which, of course, are hardly pioneer, but anything over 8 years old is pioneer style in television.
You've come a long way since those early days. And perhaps more than any other writer, your name has figured in the classic battle of that is, television writer, the battle of the writer to be his own man. What happens when a writer like yourself...
On an unrelated note, it's amazing to me that this interview took place over 50 years ago.
Is this from 59?
This is 1959, yeah. This is right before Twilight Zone aired, or began airing.
Yeah.
That's 50 years?
Yeah. And he's...
55 years, almost.
I think it really gives me a lot of hope and happiness that, like, people like us are still listening to things that were made 50 years ago, and there's still people out there who appreciate art and music and things that was created quite a while before we were born. Like, we're all not just huge Kesha fans, that we are interested in the Twilight Zone as well. But don't get me wrong, I love Kesha, $, or not.
You know what trips me up historically? This always trips me up. I've said this 100 times. But how it's 2014. So I was born in 1990. You were born in 91. This will be even more true for you, that we're just as close to 1966 as we are to now from when we were born. That's pretty trippy to me.
It is.
Which is still, later than this, obviously. But 1966 sounds old.
Sounds like Ricky and Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's 66. It's fucking separate water fountains.
Yeah, what is it for you?
Mm-hmm.
What year were you born?
I'm 1986.
So you'd be like, 63. So it doesn't sound as different.
That's Mike Ditka and the Bears.
Well, 63 was
pre-JFK death. So
yeah, because I'm an August birthday.
Yeah.
He was killed in November 63.
Yeah, November 16th, I think.
Yeah, so he was still there. But we were, we brushed upon Vietnam, and U.S. intervention in Vietnam and Indochina happened, in 1954. We were barely wrapping up anything on the combat zone, in the combat zone of Korea at that point. So, and then large scale, it started coming in about 65, 66. Quezon and Way City were a little bit earlier on. So 63 to 66, we would have been preparing for a war that was started on a false premise.
Yeah, the fucking, what was the false flag that started Vietnam?
It was the Gulf of Tonkin, of
Gulf
course.
of Tonkin incident?
Yeah, that's what really got it kicking off. And what's so different from the Gulf of Tonkin and the quote-unquote weapons of mass destruction in Saddam Hussein's Iraq. Ba'ath Party Iraq.
Don't get Jesse Ventura over here started on the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah, don't get me started on conspiracy theories.
I know. And it's not
don't get me started as in I'm into them.
Well, there's no conspiracy because it's blatant.
The Gulf of Tonkin isn't a conspiracy theory. It's true.
Yeah, it just is,
McNamara admitted it when we did that Fog Award thing.
I saw the guy that leaked the Pentagon Papers speak at my school last year. It was amazing. I actually didn't know he was a Marine vet in 71.
When I was in D.C., the dudes that leaked Watergate came to speak at our school and I fell asleep.
Oh,
I'm such a cunt. I'm such a cunt. I fell asleep while fucking, what's it, Bernstein and, what are their names? Bernstein and Woodward?
I don't know.
Yeah, they're
Rosewood or Woodward?
Yeah, Woodward and Bernstein, yeah. They're so famous. They leaked Watergate and they came to speak and I fell asleep.
There's like a whole movie about them.
Yeah.
It's not even like a historical piece. Like there's a very good movie about them that just
they're like
disregarded.
They're the most famous, they were like the Deep Throat. Like they broke that whole case.
They're the most famous.
And the most
some of the most famous journalists of all time, and you fell asleep.
My teacher came over and kicked me out of the assembly.
Gilded whistleblowers, and you passed the fuck out.
Yeah.
Why were you so sleepy?
I did it all night or the night before.
Of course.
I was trying to develop a new sleeping pattern where you stay up all week and then just sleep through the weekend. I thought I could defy your what's the word? Circadian rhythms. I thought I could defy those. I thought 10,000 years of evolution had nothing on me.
Sigmund Freud.
So yeah, very Freudian. No, it isn't.
The Wednesday Caveat podcast #health.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought Starbucks and Willpower could fuck Woodward and Bernstein.
That's unreal.
Yeah, probably the worst thing I've ever done in my life.
Did you feel like you were in?
I just know that at one
zone?
point in Woodward and Bernstein's life, they saw my dumb ass get kicked out of the assembly. So that's kind of cool.
We all
they remember me more than they remember Deep Throat.
They all make history. We all make history.
Yeah.
Beyond that which is known to
in
man,
the Twilight Zone.
it is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity.
Sorry, I actually didn't mean for that to start. It just
How
needed
dare
to be
you?
refreshed.
Sorry, Woodward and Bernstein, I know you're listening.
Their asses have been put on a shirt long ago.
I think they're both still alive, right?
Really? Are they
that happened
600 years
That happened
old?
in 2008. So, that's what's disturbing that's 6 years ago. It's almost... That's over half a decade ago. But, they weren't that old even. They didn't look old from what I remember through my half-open eye.
Well, they were...
a decade makes 10 years
They were both
sound so much... Sorry for...
Oh, no, go ahead.
Doesn't half a decade make 5 years sound longer?
It does.
I'm in my last semester of college right now, and I started in February 2009.
But for me, a century doesn't sound as long as 100 years is.
True. 100 years sounds longer than a century.
Yeah, like when you say the 100 Years' War, that sounds absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just
But the Centuries War doesn't have quite the same bite.
No, that kind of, it almost sounds sensical.
It almost sounds like, I get it.
Yeah.
Someone was acting up.
What is that, like a 7 Days War?
Someone smoking weed.
This thing works.
We smoke weed on the podcast. We're chill.
I've got that good kush
It
and
really
alcohol.
works.
Wait, can we do a reread of the BuzzFeed article to someone who hasn't heard it yet?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, would that be...
Not for the listeners, but for
I mean,
Abigail,
yeah, for
President.
Abby, but the listeners might like to hear a new... Yeah, so... How about this? Let's make it fun.
Yeah.
There's 4 of them. If you get half of them right, you win. If you don't, you have to take 2 shots of that bourbon over there. Ooh.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
that's
What
my,
if I
that's my
purposefully
bourbon.
lose? No, I'm just
I mean...
What do you say? Let's
move
do
the mic.
this.
Sorry,
and then let's do this and do the end of the show.
Okay, just
Yeah,
read the
yeah.
closing. Alright, so if you guys actually listen to this whole hour and a half, which I know all 5,000 of you have,
Yeah.
we're going to redo the BuzzFeed from the beginning, and we're going to try it on Abby to start again. And
Fresh
if
ears.
she gets half of them right, then she doesn't have to take 2 shots of bourbon, which
You do.
kind of like you're losing. Okay, well, no, I
see,
can't.
that's what I'm saying. What if
I've
I
had a
lose
few
on
Chardonnays.
purpose?
I can't drink much more. But if she misses 3 of them, then... Wait, is it... If you tie, though, what happens? If you get 2 right, you take 1 shot. But if you get 3 wrong, you take 2 shots.
Your devil may care
If there are
attitude
4
is just steering
questions,
the
we might
show
be water
off.
tuned.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's turning
let's
into
start.
a real Roberto
All right,
Clemente.
you gotta
Let's just
say
start
what's
over.
true and what's just false from BuzzFeed articles. Yeah, very...
How many
Roberto
are true
Clemente.
and how many are false in each? Is there 1 true and...
You just have to say, I'm going to read 2, you say which is true and which is false.
Oh, okay.
Once an episode.
I like the Roberto Clemente things, but come on, guys. Alright, here we go.
How did you guys observe Plane Crash Day?
Oh, God. Alright, here we go.
That was a great
This
day.
show's falling apart. This is a good time to end it about. Alright, so, here's the first 2. 11 things people with unnaturally colored hair are sick of hearing. Or 11 ways to wow your boss before the bonus you're wanting.
1 is true, 2 is false.
Correct.
So,
You guys, stop yelling. Alright, so she got the first one right.
Where's
Here's
the
the second
applause?
2. Why you should never use Apple products, and then all capitals, we aren't kidding. And 21 truths Jim and Pam taught us about love.
First one, false. Second one, true.
Correct.
You're good.
I know you guys.
Alright, here's the next 2. 11 people who look like IKEA products. Or 19 animals that are voting yes in the Scottish independent referendum.
1 true, 2 false.
Both true.
What?
Yeah. You got that one wrong. So if you miss this one, you have to take a shot of bourbon. Alright. Here's the last one. This is the hardest one, too.
I thought 1 was
This
true
song-
and 1 was false for each case.
No, I never said that. I just said you gotta say which is true and which is false.
There's no
That's the
structure. There's no
caveat.
That's the
structure
Wednesday
to this
caveat.
game.
That's the one they caveat.
Alright.
E8.
Here's the last one. This is the hardest one.
Okay.
21 impossibly adorable wedding day dogs. Or 13 songs your dad hated. 13 songs your dad hated,
False.
but your mom couldn't stop playing.
That one's false. The first one is true.
they're both fake.
Well, did I still win?
Yeah, you still
Everyone
won.
What if I take 1 shot and then it'll
You can
be
still
like
take a
both
shot.
people won?
That's perfect.
Okay.
We should go out on a song, though.
We're all about compromise.
Yeah, I think Matteo was lining something up. What are you lining up, man?
You'll see.
All right.
I don't know if anyone's gonna like it but me, but
Just don't yell.
And did we set up a Gmail account or anything?
We'll set one up.
Yeah, we'll set one up. Maybe, you know what, episode 3, stay tuned. Episode 3, we'll have everything set up. We'll do a Gmail and a Twitter and all that shit. But for now, you know, awkward at Twitter, awkward on Instagram. And boys, you got yours? I'm just
I'm
Twitter.
at Taco Jones on Twitter, but the O in Jones is a 0.
Fuck
It's
yeah.
really hard to.
I'm at Matty Gabes on Twitter. Check me out. I talk a lot about having a job that you don't appreciate, and I know there's a lot of people that feel the same way.